Oh, I'm standing right in the smoke. That's okay. So one of the problems I'm facing as I'm cleaning up some of the trash out of this fire pit from whoever was here last. They also didn't do a super great job of... I'm glad they got their deer. They also just kind of threw body parts everywhere. So unfortunately I didn't camp last night because of everything. But if I did, I certainly wouldn't be camping here. Just because I don't want to sleep next to dead animals, and I don't want to run the risk of any of those animals coming to my camp looking for food. I mean, you're gonna anyways if you're camping and have food, but I'm not trying to make that any worse than it can. But today, I figure, if nothing else, I can come out here and I can show you guys something that I've been wanting to try for a while. What I've got here is an axe from Harbor Freight. It's a Pittsburgh 4.5 pound axe with a hickory handle. And I was looking for a way to process some firewood because I don't have an axe or a hatchet out here. But my taste in these kinds of things is a little bit more, it's polar opposite. It either needs to be really cheap or it needs to be super high end. It needs to be vintage axes and Grand Force Brooks. It doesn't actually have to be, but we're gonna try and take this $30 axe and we're gonna see if we can make it good enough at least for use riding around in the back of the pickup truck. So I'm not going to make a super big fire, and I want to preface everything by saying that depending on where you live, processing firewood is kind of a relative term. Pretty much everything here, I didn't go more than 20 feet from where I'm parked. I want to make it very clear too that with the exception of these larger sticks here, I didn't even cut anything. All of this was just snapped off. But I'm gonna go snap off some more kindling because looking at that, I got distracted and I don't have enough of that. So I'm gonna go get some more. All right, so that's a little bit better. I like having a little bit more than a little bit less here, especially considering I'll just put what I don't use in a bag. And then we'll save it for later. I have this Yugoslavian, I think, bread bag. It's like a waste pack that I've just got a bunch of random fire starter in it, and I went ahead and waxed it, even though it's gonna sits in the truck or in the Jeep. This is not gonna be a big fire because I've got time to sit out here, but I don't have time to, now screw it, we'll just use all of this. I'll find more next time. But I certainly don't have the time to sit out here and wait for a fire to die down all night. So this isn't going to be huge. It doesn't need to be. It's a little cold, just above freezing. The other reason is I got something with this axe that I've never tried before that we're going to give a shot. I've come to love this little Zippo lighter, especially when it's not a survival scenario because it's windproof and accelerant based. Hope this paper takes well enough. It should. it has done in the past. Yeah, there we go. All right, I think that's good enough to get us started. So let's go ahead and take a look at this axe. So yeah, 4.5 pounds, 33 inch handle, 33.5 inch handle, something like that. I don't know if that's finished length or unfinished length. The first thing we're going to do to it is we're going to peel some stickers off, because we don't need those. Oh, maybe we'll have to scrape them off with the razor blade. They're pretty on there. We're going to grab the razor blade, and we're going to get rid of this coating. A lot of axe manufacturers, particular cheap ones, they'll put like I don't know if it's a polyurethane on the outside of it, but it's pretty uncomfortable, and it's altogether just not very nice. It flakes eventually, and to me, the handle is the biggest way you can tell whether an axe is cheap or not. So that is where most of the time today is going to go. But we're going to take our razor blade, and we're going to use it like a card scraper. We're just going to take it and pull it, and we're going to scrape all that gunk off. You can see that it's starting to flake off, and you'll see generally a lot of the times the wood actually start to change color because the coating just darkens the wood a little bit. So normally you can see where it is. Now I will say, none of this is going to be worth it if you pick an axe with a bad handle. And I looked at the axes that they had on the shelf, and I picked the best one. What you want is you want the grain to be as straight as possible and follow best as you can perpendicular to the axe edge, so or in line with the axe edge rather, and perpendicular with the swinging plane along from here to there. This is not that bad of a handle. I'm actually kind of impressed with it. It's a little wobbly in places, but once again, this is a $30 axe. I think it was like $32 after taxes. I can't ask too much. I'm not impressed with how it's hung, but that's probably the next thing that is just generally a good indicator of a cheap axe, or just someone that doesn't know what they're doing. So when you're doing it, you want to make sure you're getting all the way up in here too. That'll be really important. You could theoretically use sandpaper on this, but with this particular coating that they put on these things, I don't know what it is. For one thing, it gums up your sandpaper super bad. But second off, it just almost makes it too smooth. I find that using the razor blade trick generally leaves a little bit better finish on it. So this is a little bit long. When it comes to travel axes, I normally like a 24-inch finished or unfinished length handle. So before everything smacked on there, I could be 24 inches. But that's on a 2.5 pound axe, or maybe 3 pound. Now I do have a big old 4.5 felling axe, and this is, for all intents and purposes, a Michigan style 4.5 pound felling axe. This is designed, while it is considered to be one of the most versatile head patterns, it is designed to cut down trees. That is what this is designed to do. So 4.5 pounds, instead of doing 24 inches, I think I'm going to do a little bit longer because the extra leverage of the head, it is going in the truck. I don't have to be worried about it too long. But I think if I do 24 inches finished length, about there, that would still give me a nice, good leverage while still being fairly compact. You could, at that point, it would still be feasible to strap to the outside of a backpack, even though I wouldn't necessarily recommend carrying around something that size. So we're going to go from there to there. We're just going to make a mark with the razor blade, because why not? And we're going to cut that off. Something to keep in mind is if you look at this axe, it is relatively straight down the whole length. There is a little bit of a kick there towards the end, but it's only the last 6 inches. So if you do cut this off up here, it's just a straight handled axe. That's important. If you have an axe with crazy curves on it, cutting it off that much might just leave you with an axe that doesn't feel very good in the hands because of the way that the curves have been changed. So we're going to try, and we're going to make this cut as perpendicular as possible. And I might add some ergonomic features to it. But for now, we're just going to cut it straight off at the 24-inch mark. Flip it over so we end up with cuts all the way through, not a cut through and then a snap, or a breakage point rather. But if we do, I want it to end up on the back side. So we're going to cut through it like this once we've connected everything. Oops, and that's what I was trying to avoid, was that tear out. But I guess what that means is that answers my problem, or my question about if I was going to add a kick out on this or not, or a pommel. Well, so we're going to get rid of that. And I'm going to go actually about to where the top of that tear out is, and I'm just going to put like a 45-degree-ish angle on it. This is a lot trickier with this saw because of the angle of the grains. And add just a little bit of that there. We're going to clean that up in a minute with our knife, but now I used to have, or I mean I still technically have, an axe that is the size that this one used to be. I have a vintage Council tool 4.5 pound felling axe that I picked the head up and rehandled myself on a Whiskey River 36-inch curved, I think it was. I love that axe. That axe has gone more places and done more things with me than largely any other tool that I've ever had. In fact, that axe is what gave me that scar. And it used to be about that long because it was a couple years ago. But I guess like father, like son, my dad and I both now have scars on the back of our hands from tools. Even though his, admittedly, is a lot gnarlier than mine was. He cut an angle grinder to the back of the hand. I almost cut off my thumb, but that's neither here nor there. It's not a competition. He's got a better scar for sure, though. This will be just fine. Now this next part I would normally do with a torch. I don't have a torch, so we're going to try something. We're going to take one of these rocks, we're going to put it like that. Move this one a little bit closer. And what we're going to do, and this is the whole reason, or not the whole reason, but most of the reason I started this fire. Now what I'm trying to do here is not only do I think roasting your handles look better, but it also kind of gets rid of the heat, or the moisture out of it. The heat prevents the moisture from getting trapped and cracked and all of those other things. But what we need to make sure we need to do, we need to watch the heat for two reasons. First off, we obviously don't want our handle to light on fire. That would not be a good thing. The second is if you get this head too hot, you will ruin the heat treat. You'll ruin the temper. So we're just going to monitor and make sure that nothing's getting too hot. If you see that metal start to change color, it's too hot. You can see that it's a little bit darker. I need to correct myself. You're not necessarily trying to get rid of the moisture, but there's actually two really big reasons for doing this. The first one is that, I don't know, I think it looks better. Roasted hickory looks really good. But also, when you burn it or roast it, what happens is the soft parts get burnt away from the hard parts, and the hard parts get left behind. And what happens, I don't know if you guys can hear that, is it leaves a little, like, micro ridges. It actually makes it really nice to hold. Once again, this is a little heavy for what you would normally want, but whatever. I think it looks good. I think it feels good. The last thing we're going to do on the handle side is we are going to seal it. There's plenty of options. The one I've really come to enjoy, particularly for axes I don't necessarily want to treat the handles on once a year, is Watco Danish oil, and it's kind of a varnish, kind of a wood treatment, but it's real easy to apply. You just take it, you put it on a rag, or in my case some Taco Bell napkins, and you rub it on there. I don't know if you can see, but the way that that color transforms with Watco is incredible. I've found that it is a slightly longer lasting finish. So once again, if this is just going to kick around in the back of a truck or a Jeep or anything like that, Watco's great. I use boiled linseed oil on a lot of my hatchets, and once again, that 36-inch falling axe that I've got But those are axes that I have no problem going out and treating that wood once or twice a year at the end of the season, if there is such a thing. Whereas with Watco, I found you don't need to quite as much. You still kind of do. And I just put a light coat on this. You can put a heavier coat if you want. And what that'll end up doing is it'll just fill in those cracks. Watco's great. Danish oil is what it is typically referred to. Watco's the name brand. But I love the way that the wood just kind of turns glossy and deep and rich, and that almost doesn't look like a $30 axe handle. So now we're going to let that sit for a while, let that soak in. Most important thing with an axe for me is that if I let it fall, and this is hard dead wood, so it's kind of difficult to see, I want it to stick, because that means that the axe is doing the work. If you can see now, I've got it hit that pretty hard to get it to stick. But that's ideal, is I can take it and I can stick it in a log. But I can already see that this has lost a lot of its sharpness. There we go, found a good spot, I guess. And that's what I want it to do every time. I did notice this has a need for a much more major edge correction than I originally thought. So I'm gonna have to sit there in front of the TV tonight or sometime this week and just figure it out, because it's not, I thought it was dull. It just doesn't even come to a point, which I think is where most of your cheapness is going to come from, is that kind of quality control. I don't think it's an issue with the steel itself, but it is flat.